Hey, welcome back. Today I'm going to talk about more on the front derailleur, certain specific issues, probably more about chain rub when you're in a particular gear. So we're going to be utilizing the barrel adjuster, which on this bike, this is a mountain bike, it has grip shift, but the barrel adjuster for the front derailleur is, in most cases and for most bikes, is located on the front shifter. So the front derailleur does not have a barrel adjuster at the front derailleur, it's always at the front shifter. So we're going to use this right here. So some of you may have a chain rub in the front. So right here we got our chain, our front derailleur cage. This is the outer cage, and then we have the inside of the derailleur cage. So we're either rubbing on this side of the chain, the outside, which is, we'll call this the right side, or on the inside, which is the left side. So we're rubbing on the inside of this cage, and it might be in certain gears, like this gear right now. This is a triple. It's a 3 chain ring crankset. We're in the middle ring, which is number 2, and then in the back we're in 5th gear right here. So more or less a straight chain line. I'm going to go ahead and pedal, and nice and quiet. I'm just hearing the hum of the chain going on, but when I start to go ahead and downshift back here, the chain line is actually going to start doing this, which is going to bring it a little bit closer to the outside of this derailleur cage. So I'm going to go from 5th to 6th. And right there, we're definitely getting a rub. So if we look directly down here, you're gonna see that we are getting a rub here on this side, which is the outside of the cage, and not the inside over here. And watch out for a spinning wheel. Always use your brakes to stop that wheel. So we got one more gear in the rear to go to. I'm gonna go ahead and downshift, bring that chain over, which is gonna bring that chain line over more this way, which is going to bring it a little closer to this outside derailleur cage. So right now we do have a slight rub, and we're gonna downshift to the last gear in the rear. Right there. So our rub is slightly louder, but definitely still rubbing. So chain's all the way to the outside right over here, and it's in the middle over here. So chain in the last gear on the rear cassette, and then we're gonna check out, follow that chain up to the front as we come into focus, and we see it going through the front derailleur cage, and you can see the chain is actually rubbing pretty close to the right side right over here. So this is where we're getting our rubbing. So you might have to get yourself and get your eyeballs in a different angle so you can get in the right line to see what is actually rubbing. So we're going to try and take care of that problem right there.
Don't fake it, baby.
So right now we're looking at the front derailleur, got our chain rings. This is a triple. We have 3 chain rings in the front here. Right now the chain is in the middle chain ring. This is our upper chain ring, middle, and then we got a lower one. So it's in gear number 2. And we are experiencing this chain rubbing right here in this cage right there. That noise we're hearing. So it's rubbing right on the inside right there. What makes this front derailleur different from the rear derailleur is I can just bolt on the rear derailleur directly and there's no more adjustment. For the front derailleur, we actually have to worry about the height. So if our derailleur cage is too high or too low, that could affect shifting. We're also looking at the angle. If we look at our derailleur cage here, if it's angled out this way, we're gonna have bad shifting. If it's angled the other way, bad shifting. So we need it to be pretty much in line. We want it nice and flat and flush with this chain ring here. And we're usually standing behind the bike at the back wheel. Look, getting an eye line right down here. Making sure this is nice and flat. Once you get those two, the height and the angle correct, then we can move on with other adjustments. So to remedy this rub issue we have right here, and this is very particular, where we were in the last gear in the rear and we're in the middle up in the front. Is this a bad gear to be in? I don't think so. It's not that severe of a cross chaining. So I think, you know, if you want to be in this gear, it's okay, especially we're running a 7-speed in the rears. So the angle is not that severe, but to go ahead and try and remedy this problem, we're going to use the barrel adjuster, which is going to allow us to apply some pressure on the cable. We're going to pull the cable, in this case it's going up, which is going to bring this cage outward just a little bit. If we relieve tension, it's going to allow the cage to go back in. So if we're rubbing here, if the cage comes out more towards the right, then we're going to relieve that chain rub. So I'm going to see if I can do this manually. So right now we're rubbing. Okay, now I'm going to push on this derailleur cage manually. Be careful if you do this, you don't get your fingers caught. So I'm going to push on it, mimicking if the cable was going to pull a little more tension, which would bring the cage out, and we should relieve that noise. So I'm pushing out to the right on that cage. We just relieved some of that noise, or the majority of it. If I release my fingers here, we get the rub back. So what we want to do is create more tension on this cable, which is we're going to be doing that with the barrel adjuster. Now there's another thing we're going to be looking at, which concerns the limit screws. These two screws here, they should only be touched usually when we're first installing this system, this front derailleur. Once we set it correctly, we should not have to go back to these two screws. These are not two screws you want to be playing with if you have rubbing issues or gear changing issues. You're only going to these limit screws if your chain is falling off the cranks on this side or falling off over into the frame over on this side. So if you're losing your chain completely on the inside or the outside, this is when you're going to address one or both of these screws. Once you dial that in, you set them and forget them. That's it. Any other adjustments going from 1 to 2 or 2 to 3 or vice versa, trying to go from 3 to 2 or 2 to 1. If you're having issues getting up or hesitation going down, you're going to be using your barrel adjuster at your shifter.
Back with a crate digging, the classics at the end of the show. Shout out to rinse to 11.
In this case, this does happen to be a grip shift, but we do have a barrel adjuster here. If you have the other style with a thumb or index finger trigger shifters, same thing, you're going to find a barrel adjuster looking right about in this position and you're going to twist it. So this is where things get a little counterintuitive. So we want to apply more tension to that cable, which means I'm going to be unscrewing this. I'm going to be going lefty loosey, which actually means I am tightening or pulling cable. So if I want to tighten and pull cable, I'm going to unloosen this going lefty loosey. And that was roughly about a half turn. So either you're going to do a small quarter turn or you're going to do a half turn at a time, pause, go ahead and pedal, see if you're still experiencing the same problem. If you are, you're going to go ahead and do another quarter or half turn and then see what you get. And you're going to go back and forth. This is where patience pays off. So I already turned that barrel adjuster maybe roughly, I unloosened it maybe one turn to a turn and a half. So that meant as I was unscrewing that barrel adjuster, it was pulling tension on this cable, pulling it up, which meant it's going to bring this derailleur cage outward and basically bring this cage away from this chain, trying to stop this chain rub in this area right here. So I did that adjustment already. I'm going to go ahead and pedal. And so we're still getting the noise. So it's going to need a little more tension. So if you have a bike where you have exposed cable, if you're not internally routed into your frame, you can grab that bare cable, you can pull on it. So as I pull on it, it should activate this cable or activate this derailleur cage. Just like that. So again, if I pull on this cable and hold it while I'm pedaling, I could almost make the whole derailleur cage change gears if I pull it hard enough, but right now I'm just trying to relieve that chain rub. So right there's nice and quiet. Now I'm going to relieve the cable with my left finger and it's back. So that's what we're trying to do, but instead of me holding this the whole time while we're riding to stop this rub, we are going to use that barrel adjuster. We're going to unscrew lefty loosey that barrel adjuster and it's actually going to pull tension on this cable. So I'm going to go back and we're going to turn that. I'm going to go ahead and turn it maybe another. I'm going to do one full turn and then we'll try this again. We're going to pedal, see if we get any quietness. So that actually sounds pretty good. I'm getting one slight rub and it's at a certain spot, usually because either something's slightly bent, which is pretty normal. You see this quite a bit on most bikes. Either our chainring is slightly bent or it could be the crank arm, could be the axle of the bottom bracket. But anyways, it's so minor that you can usually adjust this out. So we got rid of, I'd say, about 80–90% of that scrape. If I go ahead and turn it, at this point I'll probably turn that barrel adjuster, since we're almost where we want it, I'll probably turn it maybe a quarter turn and then go ahead and re-pedal. And that noise is practically gone. So the reason we do small increments is because we don't want to over adjust. If we start spinning like crazy, all we're going to do is mess up the other end of this adjustment. So when I go and try and downshift, I'm on gear 2. If I try and downshift down to gear 1 and then it doesn't want to, it's hesitating to go down, that means I overcompensated, I over adjusted this. That means I got to go back to my barrel adjuster and now go the opposite direction. So I have to tighten it. As I tighten, it's going to relieve pressure, allowing this derailleur cage to go over, which is going to allow the chain to go down into that first chainring. So there's a lot more that goes on with this front derailleur, but this is a little more insight. You could have some other issues that may not allow you to get the results that we just got today with the barrel adjuster. The other thing that could be going on is our limit screw for the high adjustment, which is going to be our H screw. And on here, it could be mixed up. You might think it's on the outside. On another bike, it might be over on the inside. So we'll do that for another video. So just to kind of touch on that, if I made the adjustments with my barrel adjuster to pull tension, and maybe we're getting some results, but we still had some rubbing, and then we run out of room on our barrel adjuster, or sometimes the screw of the barrel adjuster, those threads come all the way out, and sometimes you don't know it, and that's where we have to start looking at other things to see, did I just exhaust all the threads on my barrel adjuster? Now, what do I have to do to fix that? So the other thing that could be blocking this cage from moving and getting the room that it needs to quiet down, it could be that limit screw is a little bit too tight. So if we unloosen that limit screw, and again, here's where we're doing a quarter or an eighth or a 16th of a turn, that can make all the difference here. It can make the difference of allowing this chain to quiet down, or it could be the difference to make where this chain is going to come off your chain ring and scratch up your crank arm right there. That'll be for another day. Go ahead and play with that. Good luck, and let me know how it goes.